Alright, today I wanted to talk about lights. Now, not necessarily headlights or whatever, but the kind of lights that a lot of you probably want to add to your retired police vehicle, whether you're doing it to try to look like a police car, to get people to get out of your way when you're driving down the left lane or whatever. I don't judge. I don't care what you're doing. That's on you. I'm just here to talk about the legality of it and some things that you might want to consider that you can't find just from reading plain statutes necessarily. Some of you know that I'm an attorney in real life, and some of you also know that I'm a prosecutor for the state of Texas. So I have a little bit of expertise in this area that your typical YouTuber telling you what they think is not going to have. So, number one, obviously you need to read the statutes in your state, and unfortunately they may or may not be laid out in a way that's easy to find. For example, there may be codes in a vehicle or motor vehicle or transportation code, and then there may be general statutes in some other code. It's hard to predict, but what I'm telling you is sometimes statutes are not just laid out as in red lights are illegal, blue lights are illegal, yellow lights are illegal in these circumstances, white light, sometimes they're all over the place in the code, and so you can't just easily find them. Sometimes even attorneys have trouble finding some of the more obscure statutes. But generally speaking, red and blue lights are typically a no-no in most places. Whether they're flashing, whether they're steady, typically they're illegal. Texas passed some exceptions to that for certain vehicles, like tow trucks and Texas Department of Transportation vehicles and so forth. Most of the time, they are not supposed to be driving down the road with those lights on. They're supposed to only use them when they're stopped on the side of the road. And regardless if they are right or wrong about doing so, their theory was that people were crashing into them because the yellow lights were not enough to alert their presence or whatever, whereas the presumption was if they saw blue lights that they would think it's police and slow down. Is that really in reality working? Who knows? But I can put up the Texas statutes for those of you that live in Texas. The rest of you, you're going to be on your own trying to find the lighting statutes that apply in your state. Like Texas allows spotlights, Texas allows certain other things that are probably illegal in your more blue states like California, New York, so forth. But of course, there's also a criminal statute for impersonating a police officer. It's very broad. So here's kind of my caveat on all of this, just for you to think and consider. Number one, the impersonation statutes are typically pretty broad to allow for prosecution of a lot of things. And number two, the courts have decided that basically police officers can be wrong about the law and still arrest you and still be immune from that. So what I'm saying is, regardless if you have read your state's laws and you think it's legal for you to have a red light to the front or flashing blue to the back, or alternating flashing ambers front, rear, whatever, what I'm saying is, if a police officer stops you and thinks that you are impersonating a police officer or that those lights are illegal, most likely they can write you a citation and or arrest you. And even if you ultimately win in court, I gotta ask you, do you really win? Do you really want to be the test case? Do you really, are you vindicated if you are drugged through a jury trial and maybe one or two appeals to higher courts before you're let out of prison or jail? I mean, I know the answer for me. I prefer to avoid the chances of being arrested rather than pushing the limits of the law with hopes that the highest court in the state is going to overturn my conviction and let me out of prison. But that's a personal question that you have to ask. But bottom line, it's usually not worth pushing the envelope on the lighting stuff. Now, obviously, if you're a reserve officer, volunteer firefighter, or something along those lines, you may be exempt from those lighting laws. Again, you'd have to check your state's laws, but generally speaking, just a normal citizen, you probably don't want to push the issue with the lighting stuff. So hope that was helpful and enjoyable. And if you're liking this format, we'll try to do a lot more videos talking about different things like this. Just let me know in the comments.